So again, my name is Michaela, and I am a person in long-term recovery from a primary diagnosis of bipolar disorder. Since achieving recovery about 7 years ago, I found that I have a tendency to speak more about my accomplishments while in recovery than the history that preceded the turning point in my life. So over the past year and a half, I've really thought about this, and I've started to recognize that most people begin caring about the genuine well-being of others, but at some point, those same people begin to, I guess, become fearful of others who they might find different. So early in 2013, when I really started to think about this, it was when I was really watching the news, and I started seeing the term mentally ill come up more and more in headlines and on television, and I realized that it is easy to write off individuals who experience mental health or substance use. And it's easy to call them crazy, as addicts, even as mentally ill or psycho, or using other derogatory terms or associations. And it seems like it's simply to classify someone as everything you will never become. However, I think that people forget that struggling is simply a part of the human condition. Just because I struggled a bit more than you, or in reality, maybe we all struggle and I just didn't have the same social supports growing up, or I didn't have the same access to services, or maybe the people in my life were never even given information about community-based resources that would have been able to help me to move past the struggles that I had, and not even maybe even achieve recovery. But I know now I'm grateful for my recovery, and it's a huge part of who I am. So as you might be wondering why this is relevant, it's relevant because I was the poster child for the picture of mental illness as it is portrayed in movies like Girl Interrupted. And I think maybe if you think about Charlie Sheen without the publicity. I reference this individual because he chose to be public about his situation and to provide you with a reference point. With that said, I'm here today with two asks before I get into my story. I hope that you will walk away with, one, a mental image of what recovery looks like, and two, a resource to refer anyone you might believe would benefit from gaining information about mental health and wellness. In an effort to speak about my time before my recovery, I've decided to read you a poem I wrote after speaking to Vered a few days ago about my fears related to being judged. Thank you, Vered, for listening. I really appreciate the space that you gave me. I feel a lot more balanced. So here we go. Once upon a time, not too long ago, there was a little girl who was full of sorrow and woe. Mistreated, neglected, and abused. Nothing seemed to make sense. I was wandering lost and confused. As time progressed, the secrets kept growing, a cloud of poison, putrid, dark, consuming. As she barely held on for the ride, the mountain of life steepened. She continued to climb. Looking back for a moment, she thought, I must be exaggerating this pain. Yet in the memory of her innocence being stripped away, who wouldn't be brought to their knees, broken, insane? Despite the turmoil, the anxiety, the rage, bystanders could only look on, misinformed, ill-equipped, unable to gauge the seriousness of Act 2, childhood only setting the stage. When adolescence hit, it soon became apparent. Self-mutilation, damaging, erratic. I can recall the confusion, the paranoia, the shame, and so many emotions exploding in my brain. Looking back, I get mad that no one acknowledged. I was walking along the edge of a ledge, death seeming my only option. I want to scream sometimes, hello, wake up. I've lost all my friends, I'm using drugs, I'm bulimic, I'm skipping school, I'm testing my luck. I've come quite a ways, and I ask my friends now, why didn't you help? And they say they didn't know how. What else could they do than run away? They were scared, disappointed, and were told, she'll grow out of it one day. Well, I'm here to share, fortunately as living proof, that not everybody gets over it, and that's the truth. When no one stepped up to lend me a hand, I laid down, wrote a letter, and made a plan. To be clear, I'm not here to bring you to tears. I am here to let you know that it's okay to have fears. It's just, there's a lot of work to be done. So I ask, please begin by challenging your own point of view. It is clear why it matters. Our future depends on you. So within the last probably 20 seconds I have up here, here's what my life has been like since achieving recovery. I finished my undergrad and went to grad school. I am a mother of 3 and happily married. I'm now working in my dream job at Toivo by Advocacy Unlimited, leading a peer-run grassroots initiative called Join Rise B, which is an organization for young people in recovery who wish to share their experience to influence change. Over the last year and a half, I've worked on the project that we're all here today about, and specifically, I was the research consultant. Turning Point CT is an example of the beauty that comes from including young people with lived experience in the planning process. As the researcher who engaged young people around the state in conversations about what they thought about technology and mental health, I couldn't be more impressed that everything from the content to the design is a direct reflection from those focus group findings. This is my challenge. I ask you to consider whether it is possible that part of the reason why young people are not achieving recovery like I have, some of us are, is because young people are not involved in the planning and decision-making process, so the services are do not authentically reflect our experiences. So if any of you are involved in planning and decision-making around young adult services in that area, I would ask you to maybe reach out to Join Rise B and Connecticut Turning to Youth and Families as a resource, because we're out there and we are ready and willing to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. Kevin Morse is in recovery from addiction and is dedicated to preventing substance abuse issues in young people and supporting them and their families. He works and volunteers for recovery-oriented projects, and his vision is to create a recovery high school in Connecticut.
So my name's Kevin. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So let me just say that the lights make it very simple for this because I can't see any of you, and the ones that I can see, it's just a glare. So it calms the nerves. So I'm also a person in long-term recovery. And for me, that means I haven't used alcohol or drugs since March 16, 2009. Really quick, I will just say that, recovery has brought my family together, has allowed me to be a father, an employee, a brother, an uncle, a friend, all that stuff up here. So I'll just give you a quick background really quick, hopefully 5 minutes. Okay. So in the first grade, I was suspended from school for stealing from a teacher's desk. I think it was like 85 cents. The punishment was there. Maybe then nobody looked at, wow, that's kind of risky behavior for a first grader, So that kind of just, I was suspended for a day, went back to school, was punished. The third grade, I was suspended again for throwing an ice ball through a school bus window and hitting a young girl in the face. I was suspended again, yet there was nothing thrown at me as far as like service. Nobody said, geez, that's kind of risky, maybe we should look into this. Maybe he should go to this or see that person. There was nothing. As I went on through school, I started using about 8, 9 years old in the third grade, and I actually have a 7-year-old son right now. So it really, I have a huge passion with this. So I started using very young. Before I knew it, I was dealing drugs in school, and pretty much that's all that I knew how to do was use, sell, and I knew how to go to school, but that was about it. And I say that to say this, there's a lot of services in the schools, and so we have speech class. That was one thing that was thrown at me, was speech class. I couldn't tell you what, if I had a lisp, or I don't remember. So I had speech class. Now that, somebody's getting paid for that position, and it takes some time. I also had a learning curve, so I was put in front of a computer like twice a week or 3 times a week. So again, there's money thrown at that. And then I watched other services that were provided for, like, if you have an English barrier, maybe you can take some English class, or there's other services. And the last time that I checked, nobody died from a lisp. Nobody died from a learning curve. Nobody died from an English barrier. But people are dying like daily from substance use. Yet there's no money thrown towards it. So, I work every day to try to advocate and publicize that need. Some of the things I've been able to do, I started a peer support program in one of the Milford high schools, the academy, and I was able to voluntarily work as a peer with these students, and it was amazing the different response and the way that they reacted to me, as far as the guidance counselor or whoever else was in the school, which there isn't much. And so my idea behind the recovery high schools is, like I said, we throw all this money towards all these things, speech class. There's so many different classes and money put towards things. But we can really enhance our success rates as a state in the schools if more people are graduating. So a kid like me, I barely graduated. I was basically just, all right, we're going to put you over here, and we'll graduate you as long as you don't, do anything too outlandish or break any laws. So if we have a recovery high school, now your success rates are going to go up, because more people are going to be attending school. More people are going to be able to do their schoolwork. Kids get out of rehab today, and they're thrown right back into high school. But that's not how recovery works. Like, I need help. I've needed help. I need to reach out to somebody. So as a student, where do I reach out to? I'm going to reach out to my teacher. There's a lot of stigmas, the lack of training in the schools on these issues. So they have nowhere to turn and no place to get help. So what happens, they start acting out in class, they get a detention, and it just kind of just spirals downward, when maybe there could have been some intervention put in place. So just before I close today, I've done some cool things besides, have my whole family back, and I'm a father of 3 today. I plan on going back to college. Jail was what saved my life, and a little 4-month stint in BCC. And there was no service provided in there neither at that time. So I'm just going to pass it along to John.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Jonathan Boyd is a young adult in recovery following a stroke at age 19. He now works for the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services and is a student at Tunxis Community College.
How's everybody doing today? All right. I'm a little shy, so I'm not going to take the whole 5 minutes. I kind of say my high school, my trouble started after high school. I'm not going to say I had a bad high school experience, because I didn't. I've always had some issues growing up. In residential treatment programs. Anybody heard of a place called Lake Grove in Durham? I was at CJR. Bunch of schools like that. And then finally DCF opened up their eyes, and they were like, let me see what he can really do in like a regular public high school. So, lovely school. It's called Woodland Regional High School. You should visit if you could visit. It's near Beacon Falls. It's a fairly new high school, only about 10 years old. But what I want to say, if you get the opportunity to go to school, go to school. That's my passion when I get up in the morning. I like to be able to tell people what they're able to do versus what somebody that doesn't even know them. I like to be able to tell people, hey, you can do it. You're not alone. This room is almost full with people that are and almost have similar issues or similar stories. So for me, this is my idea of getting up and waking up. I like coming to these events, getting a chance to meet people, because you never know. It could be the next person sitting next to you. You never know who's going through some things. I like to be able to touch people from the inside out. I have a lot of heart. I've been through hell and back, but I'm pretty sure everybody in this building has been as well. So I take it from the top. I take it from the staff that do direct care. How many times have you told the staff, thank you for giving me a ride to school? Thank you for waking me up in the morning, because I don't have the ability to do it on my own. Me as a young adult, I pay so much attention sometimes to putting them to other things than what's important. Thanking for the blessings that I have. That's why I think this program and would be awesome. I wish that at 3 o'clock in the morning, I could get on the website and talk to somebody if I'm having a difficult time, because I like to do my homework and stuff at night because it's quiet. If anybody's ever been to school, they got peace and quiet when you have papers due. I know I'm going over my 5 minutes, but that's my story. Like I could tell you a story like no other, but everybody's been there before. Let's try something different. So my message to you is motivate the next person next to you to better themselves and to better you. The more people we have in this community, that's why the stigma is so big. It's because people, our young adults, they look at us. We're the future of this world. We don't take the initiative. We let things just happen. Like there was a big budget crisis. And when's the last time I got on the phone and got people together and was like, let's go protest? If you're quiet and you don't respond, people are gonna just walk over you. So if you have the opportunity to go to school, go to school. If you have the opportunity to be in treatment, be involved in your treatment. It's a two-way street. I love the fact I'm in a program called CMHA in New Britain. The turnover rate is so not bad, but the people are not staying in the program long enough to get treatment. And then I see them homeless sitting asking me for 15 cents to buy a drink when they had the opportunity to get help. And that hurts. So, again, my story is very simple. My message is very simple. It starts with you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Shaquille is a young adult in recovery from schizophrenia and a trained young adult super advocate through Advocacy Unlimited.
Hi. Is it on? Hello? Can you hear me? All right. All right. Can you hear me now? All right.
Hi, my name is Shaquille Harris, and I am 22 years old, and I currently live in Hartford. I grew up in New Britain with my mom, but spent some time at my grandmother's in West Hartford for a few years. While growing up, I began noticing specific things about that maybe in hindsight were the beginning signs of some type of mental illness. For example, I had ritualistic tendencies throughout my childhood, and there was a disconnect between my mom and me. There were also challenges in my relationship with my younger brother and older sister. I was cooler with my brother than with my sister, but they definitely had a better relationship between each other. Not all experiences were negative growing up. Like, I played football and saxophone in 4th and 5th grade, and I had a few really good friends. I even went to Disney World 2 times during my childhood. Looking back, football was a great outlet for whatever I had bottled up inside. I had a passion for running and playing football. I also had a good relationship with my grandmother growing up, and I'm still connected to my dad. Growing up, I saw my dad every other weekend when it worked out. Things started going downhill just after I started middle school. At that time, I was unable to play football because of a surgery, and this is where my paranoid thinking began to emerge. I had confidence in running and overall physical health before the surgery, but after the surgery, I didn't feel as physically fit, and my self-image was negatively affected. I had dreams of becoming a pro athlete, but I felt like those dreams were crushed. I just wasn't the same. Psychologically, I was damaged as well. For example, I had lower self-confidence, became increasingly shy, and my self-image was also negatively impacted. No one knew what I was going through because I kept it all inside. Looking back, it would have been helpful if I had someone to talk to about my concerns related to the surgery. So in the end, all that turmoil was building within me, and to the point that I finally tried talking to my mom about it when I was 13. But she didn't understand what I was telling her, and she didn't really take it seriously. I realize now that no one had ever given her information about mental illness, so how could she have ever expected to understand? Eventually, towards the end of 7th grade, my bad choices and increasingly severe symptoms led to my first real episode. One day it was really bad. I was freaking out, doing weird things, and I started throwing things in the house and became aggressive. After trying to get through the night, my mom finally called 911. The police had me transported by ambulance to the New Britain Hospital, where I stayed through the night and into the next day, at which point I was sedated and brought to Holbrook Hospital in Westport, Connecticut. At Holbrook, I received inpatient services in their adolescent unit for about a month. While I was in the hospital, I was pretty depressed, and I was really hopeless. I was even homesick. Upon discharge, my care was transferred to CMHA in New Britain. At that point, I went back to school. I was part of the program called MAPS program through New Britain, which allowed me to skip 8th grade, so I went right from 7th grade into high school. The first year of high school, I didn't have someone I could call a true friend. I was too shy and easily intimidated by other people to reach out and start a conversation. After 2 years in New Britain High School, I transferred to Raymond Hill School, which is a school for DCF or children who need extra attention. I was a lot better at Raymond Hill School because there was a greater degree of acceptance between students, and the staff were more supportive to me as an individual. I established strong relationships with some key staff members. I was also actively involved in theater and sports. Getting back to organized sports, even though they weren't that competitive at Raymond Hill, was helpful for me. It is important to note that in my second year in New Britain High School, I participated in indoor track and outdoor track. At that time, I began making connection between eating healthy and my energy and performance. During that time at New Britain High School, despite complying with my medication, I acted aggressively towards another student in the 10th grade. This incident ended up leading me towards my search for God. I was already conscious of God, but I realized that I needed to accept and consciously seek God. Spirituality has been a big part of recovery ever since that day. The summer after I finished high school, I ended up leaving my mom's house to move in with my dad. At that point, my services were transferred to Mount Sinai in Hartford. When I was living with my dad we worked on getting things in order so I could start school. This included all the paperwork. I ended up changing my name to my dad's last name. Overall, things were better because we related more to each other. My dad showed a genuine interest in me as a son. Unfortunately, I was hospitalized after a month of college, and I ended up having to drop out. At that time, I didn't think I was supposed to be hospitalized, and maybe that person I was seeing at the time overreacted to what I was disclosing. At that point, I ended up transferring to Young Adult Services at the IOL. At that point, I connected with young people who were going through similar experiences. After completing the Young Adult program, I was transferred to the Schizophrenia Rehabilitation Program, also at the IOL. About 2 years in the Schizophrenia Rehabilitation Program, I was feeling distraught because my symptoms were getting worse. It felt like things were really not working out for me. I was really at the breaking point. For about a year after that, I was bounced around through living situations. Providers finally ended up connecting with the Capital Region Young Adult Program. I'm now living in the Todd House at the IOL. I would say that I am currently in transition. I recognize that there are important factors I can incorporate into my daily lifestyle which support my recovery and overall wellness. These include the gym at the YMCA on Trumbull Street in downtown Hartford, softball at Chrysalis, basketball through Capital Region. I also listen to a lot of music across several genres. When I listen to music, I allow it to motivate, inspire, and comfort me. I also read a lot of material through the internet and paperback books. I tend to read books that are self-help, self-awareness, and spiritual. As I reflected earlier, spirituality is also a big part of my overall recovery and wellness. Through my church, I have acquired a loving spiritual family and a strong social network. Church offers activities and opportunities that fill up my days and keep me close to God. This fulfillment is vital to my turning point. I also write poetry, and I plan on taking classes in the spring at the local community college. I also connect with positive alternatives like art and yoga through Toivo by Advocacy Unlimited. To close, I am here to speak to you about why I believe that Turning Point CT is an important resource for young adults who experience mental health challenges. I believe that this website is very valuable because it provides a place where young adults can find real-life examples of other young people who achieved recovery and how they deal with difficulties. Even people who aren't dealing with these issues can still gain awareness and appreciation for those who might be struggling. I believe that this website was available for either me. I believe that if this website was available for either me or my family, then maybe a lot of the issues I had to deal with somewhat on my own could have been avoided. So as I sit here today, sharing my struggles and triumphs, opening my heart and telling my story, I hope that you will listen, that you will take the time, take the lesson learned from the experience, and be open to others who may be dealing with similar issues. I hope that you will take the time to understand what they are going through and then offer guidance towards resources like Turning Point CT.
Thank you, Shaquille. And last but not least, Vered Brandman is a young adult in long-term recovery from major depression and PTSD and a trained recovery support specialist. She is the coordinator for phase 2 of this project.
Hi, so I am going to open with where I started, where I was before recovery. When I was 10 years old, I first started experiencing symptoms of depression and post-traumatic stress disorder from trauma that I experienced actually a few years before that even. At the time, I didn't realize that thinking about suicide was unusual, so I didn't tell anybody about it. And since nobody asked me, I assumed there wasn't anything unusual about it. But the signs were there for anyone to see. Talking to my mom later, she's been able to look back and identify changes that I was going through at that time that You know, I all of a sudden wasn't that bright, talkative girl anymore. Where did that girl go? She disappeared a little bit. But at that time, when I was 10, without hindsight, my parents figured that I was quiet because I was shy, and I was upset because I was oversensitive and thin-skinned, and that those were things I was going to outgrow naturally over time. And because they were my parents, and because I know they love me, I wanted to believe them. I wanted them to be right about that and about me. I wanted those problems to be things that I would outgrow naturally. So I tried, and I didn't do really great. I got quieter because I was afraid of feeling exposed. I got less social because I didn't feel connected to my classmates, the few friends that I had, even my sisters and my brother. So I tried my best to find other ways to comfort myself, like going for long walks and spending time with the family dog, which were things I could do alone because I didn't feel safe around other people. As I got older, my anxiety got worse, my depression really set in, and I stopped believing that my problems were going to get better all by themselves over time. I did reach out for help a few times, and the counselors that I saw didn't help me because none of them asked me the hard questions, the questions that I was too afraid to bring up myself. Was I thinking about self-harm? Was I thinking about suicide? Was I having intrusive thoughts? Was I afraid all the time? When I was about to turn 20, I finally blew up at my dad, and I told him everything that I had been going through and everything that I had been struggling with, including the nervous break that I had had just 4 months before that I'd been keeping to myself, that a psychiatrist later labeled a psychotic episode. Finally, having my dad aware of how much I had been struggling, I was able to go to a hospital and get real treatment and get a diagnosis and get started. While I was in the hospital, I didn't let my siblings or my mother visit me because I didn't want them to see me like that. I was embarrassed. I was lucky enough to have a mostly therapeutic experience in the hospital. So I decided that this wasn't going to be the end of my illness or of my suffering, but it was going to be a new beginning for me. I was going to pursue any opportunity for wellness that I came across. I was going to deliberately take better care of myself and pay attention to what I was feeling, and that mattered and that counted. This past spring, I celebrated 7 years in recovery. 7 years since I first went into the hospital and got real treatment and got real help that worked. But I've learned over these last 7 years that being in recovery is so much more than just having good treatment. It is so much more. I've learned about coping skills and social clubs and advocacy and the recovery movement, and there's just so much. And it is there, but nobody will tell you about it because nobody knows everything. And that's why we wanted to put this website together. Sorry. So we built this website to support and empower all of the young people who are out there, who are feeling alone, who are feeling stressed, who are feeling angry, who are feeling lost, and for their parents and for people who work with young adults to direct them to this website where they can find information about mental health, about wellness, about recovery, about what's available, because there are lots of things that are available. But what I realized right away when I got out of the hospital was that there wasn't a directory. There wasn't a comprehensive place, person, or resource that could give me all of the answers I needed about what's available, what are my options, what's the process going to look like, what should I expect from this kind of treatment or that kind of clinician, or what should I tell my parents about what it's going to cost when my insurance is under them, because I was at the point still covered by my parents' insurance. So being able to work on this website, being able to be part of this project has been so tremendously empowering for me as a young person in recovery who really, really could have used something like this 7 years ago when I was getting started, 10 years ago when I wasn't even in recovery yet, when I wasn't even getting help that worked. This would have made such a difference in the trajectory of my recovery and how long it's taken me to get here. So